Nof Glibber, hi friends, Darth Momo here, and today we're going to talk about, in this video, The Mandalorian Season 3. I didn't like this season. I think that this season was almost borderline insult to the first two seasons. I know you got to pit this on Boba Fett, but obviously they were setting that up in the Boba Fett show for Mando Season 3. I do not like the idea of Grogu and Din reuniting so soon. I think they should have just taken a break from that. They could have had like the episode or two where they dabbled back and forth. But I think they should have left them apart for most of the season. I felt if they brought them back together at the end of the season, that would have been better. You know, if we had what happened in the Boba Fett finale where where Grogu shows up, if we mixed that instead with the finale on Mandalore with him showing back up, I would have been more okay with it. Or maybe he finds out that Din Djarin got captured and Grogu's like, no, I'm going back. But I just thought it completely undercut its second season. And then bringing Moff Gideon back as, oh, nope, he broke out, he's fine. That felt like that undercut the season 2. Also, it felt like Din Djarin got dipped out of his own show. Like, now is Bo-Katan the main character? That didn't seem right. It's Din Djarin's show. He's the main character. I was all for making Bo-Katan a co-star and a main character, but not the main character. The first episode felt aimless, and that's overall what I'd probably call this season is aimless. It didn't feel like it had a overarching plot. I definitely still think the first season and the Mandalorian show overall was overrated. I was only really hyped and really on board for the last few episodes of season 2. I enjoyed it, but I definitely thought it was overrated and overhyped. And I don't know, this just felt like a step beneath both of those. It felt like it just got too big for its own good. And the first episode felt aimless. It just felt like, okay, yeah, it felt like it was basically setting up everything they were going to do each episode throughout the show. And it was just a really drawn out plot that just kind of was just wandering around and dragging its feet. And then the second episode came along and basically finished up and wrapped up everything the first episode set up, and I really liked the second episode. I was on board. I was like, okay, what are they going to do with this? And then the third episode pulled a Boba Fett and did basically the entire episode on Coruscant, which it was cool to kind of see a little bit of, but we shouldn't have focused the whole episode on that, and that felt disappointing too. That was just like, okay, this isn't the Coruscant show. This is the Mandalorian. Let's focus on the Mandalorian. And the fourth episode just felt boring, unimportant, uneventful, except for Ahmed Best coming back. That was awesome. I loved having Ahmed Best coming back, and I loved the way they drew him in with that from that YouTube show. That was really cool. It was cool to see the final flashback. You know, all the power to Ahmed Best for coming back. I'm glad he's back on board, and I'm glad he was getting celebrated for it. And then, as far as the fifth episode went, I really liked that one. I thought, okay, this is, like Bad Batch. I thought, okay, this is where we're done screwing around. We're going to turn it around and get the plot back together. And then the sixth episode, as soon as they're like, all right, well, we're here on the planet to find my Mandalorian people. And then they said, oh, Jack Black and Lizzo, of all people, popped up, which, come on, they don't belong in Star Wars, guys. And that took me out of it. And then Jack Black's like, oh, well, we need you to do this for us. And I checked out for the episode. And that was the first time I ever fell asleep during something new in Star Wars. I woke up and the episode was over. I was like, oh, okay. All right. Scratch that. I woke up right before she went to fight the Mandalorians. And then the whole fight with her with the Mandalorians just felt hollow. When she takes the Darksaber back and Din kind of loopholes his way into letting her be the true owner of the Darksaber. And everyone's just like, okay, I guess if that's what we're rolling with. It felt so hollow. You look at like when Bo-Katan gets the Darksaber in Rebels, and it felt like this big moment. This big moment for the character, this big moment for the Mandalorian plotline, for the Mandalorian people. And this just fell flat. And then the 7th episode came along, and all of a sudden, okay, yep, we're bringing Moff Gideon back. No, you know, I want to become Force sensitive, and I have my clones. It just felt very drawn out and very, I don't know, unexciting and lackluster. And I remember hearing in between the 7th and the 8th episode, I remember hearing Dave Filoni had said, oh, well, prepare to be satisfied. And it's like, really? We're not satisfied yet, guys? Like, come on. And, I mean, the 8th episode was okay, but it felt like there was a lot of rushed storytelling and a lot of hollow storytelling. And it felt similar to Boba Fett, where they just ham-handedly wrapped everything up and put a neat little bow on it, but it didn't satisfy, to me at least, I didn't satisfyingly watch and feel like a lot of plot threads were wrapped up satisfyingly. But you can't make a season 4 based off of those dangling plot threads because they've been wrapped up and they're not enough to build a whole season off of. So, I don't know, man. This season just felt lost and confused and aimless. It didn't know what it wanted to be. It didn't know what story it wanted to tell. I think what they should have done is focused on the Mandalorian stuff, but, you know, actually made it a thorough plot arc. How I would fix Mandalorian Season 3 if I was asked, and I hate to play that game because I'm not a professional writer, right? I think they should have taken the Boba Fett episodes and put those in the Mandalorian Season 3. So it starts out with Din lost. He's just back to hunting bounties, right? And he goes back to his covert. Nope, you're an apostate. And you need to redeem yourself in Mandalore. And then that sets up the rest of the plot. And we can maybe midway through cut back to him going to try to see Grogu. And then we can set up the Grogu return. And then we continue on with the Mandalorian plot line, and then Grogu comes back at the end. We wipe out, you know, the Imperial. I don't know what you do. You know, we retake Mandalore, because it's tough. Because it's like any way you bring back Moff Gideon, you undercut season 2. So I don't know. And then bringing back IG-11 too felt disgraceful. It's like, really? You're gonna undermine that? The guy exploded. Now all of a sudden he's back walking around, and I could see, too, how they're using this season as basically a crutch to help explain the sequels, which is nothing new to Star Wars. But, I don't know, I think that's interesting when, you know, these movies that were panned and maligned, and I personally am give or take on them, when we have a scene that's basically trying to set up the sequels with the Shadow Council, the Imperial Shadow Council. That felt like one of the most interesting scenes out of the whole season. Yeah, I don't know. I think Mandalorian Season 3 was just very jumbled and all over the place. I'm not really hyped to see this 4th season. I kind of almost hope the 4th season is the last one, especially with the movie around the corner that's supposed to tie everything up. I think the 4th season should be the last one. Like, Mandalorian's already overstaying its welcome. Let's wrap it up and get it out before it becomes stale. Overall, I think I would give Mandalorian a Season 3 probably a 5 out of 10, because I did think there was a couple good episodes. I did like the 2nd and 5th episode. The 7th and the 8th were okay, and then everything else was just very, didn't really care for it. So I think I'm going to stick with that. Solid 5 out of 10. That's my thoughts on Mandalorian. Now let's move on to, I'm going to talk about Visions real quick, and then we'll be all set up for when Ahsoka wraps up for me to give my review on Ahsoka. So that was the other thing real quick too. I was disappointed they didn't set up Thrawn. I watched the end credits of the last episode all the way to the end, because they set him up in the 7th episode and then they didn't bring Thrawn in. So anyway, we'll rectify that with Ahsoka hopefully. So thank you for joining in. Darth Momo out. May the Force be with you. Always. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. If you liked the video, comment down below and hit that like button. Oh, and check out some of my other videos. I'm sure you'll find them a delight.